All right, good morning, everybody. It is Friday.
Good morning.
Finally Friday.
It doesn't matter to you.
I know it does, but for you, it might.
Yeah, for them.
And that book there. And we are in the second part of the two-part parallel where Jesus teaches about serving others. The first part was in Matthew 20, verse 22. Chapter 20, Matthew chapter 20, starting at verse 20 through 28. Today, from there, we go to Mark chapter 10, starting at verse 35. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came over and spoke to him. Teacher, he said, we want you to do us a favor. What is your request? He asked. They replied, when you sit on your glorious throne, we want to sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left. But Jesus said to them, you don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I'm about to drink? Are you able to be baptized with the baptism of suffering I must be baptized with? Oh yes, they replied, we are able. Then Jesus told them, you will indeed drink from my bitter cup and be baptized with my baptism of suffering. But I have no right to say who will sit on my right or my left. God has prepared these places for those he has chosen. When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. So Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers of this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Now the commentary from Mark. Mark records that John and James went to Jesus with their request. In Matthew, their mother also made the request. Apparently, mother and sons were in agreement in requesting honored places in Christ's kingdom. The disciples, like most Jews of that day, had the wrong idea of the Messiah's kingdom as predicted by the Old Testament prophets. They thought Jesus would establish an earthly kingdom that would free Israel from Rome's oppression. James and John wanted honored places in it, but Jesus' kingdom is not of this world. It is not centered in palaces and on thrones, but rather in the hearts and lives of his followers. The disciples did not understand this until after Jesus' resurrection. James and John said they were willing to face any trial for Christ. Both did suffer. James died as a martyr. That's in Acts 12, verse 2. And John was forced to live in exile. Revelation chapter 1, verse 9. It was easy to say, it is easy to say we will endure anything for Christ, and yet most of us complain about the most minor problems. We may say that we are willing to suffer for Christ, but are we willing to suffer the minor irritations that sometimes come with serving others? James and John wanted the highest positions in Jesus' kingdom, but Jesus told them that the true greatness comes in serving others. Peter, one of the disciples who had heard this message, expands on the thought in 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 1 through 4. Businesses, organizations, and institutions measure greatness by personal achievement. In Christ's kingdom, however, service is the way to get ahead. The desire to be on top will hinder, not help. Rather than seeking to have your needs met, look for ways that you can minister to the needs of others. This verse reveals not only the motive for Jesus' ministry, but also the basis for our salvation. A ransom was the price paid to release a slave. Jesus paid a ransom for us because we could not pay it ourselves. His death released all of us from our slavery to sin. The disciples thought Jesus' life and power would save them from Rome. Jesus said his death would save them from sin, and even greater slavery than Rome's. See 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 18 and 19 for more about the ransom Jesus paid for us. Yeah, especially us here in America. You know, we say we do anything for Christ, but we get so caught up in, we want to help others. We personally don't want to help others, but we want to lack of a better word, force our government to do it for others.
Oh.
You know, and I get that our government is there to help and deal with, you know, certain things, but ideally, that's not what Christ wants.
Mm-mm.
Christ wants us personally to go to somebody personally, share our experience with Christ and help them with their need personally, not to just say, well, you know, the government should do this, that, or the other thing. Okay, we all know the government can't do it nearly as good as we could personally.
And you know, we're seeing evidence of that with the flooding that's happening recently,
Mm-hmm.
and how the neighbors are helping neighbors.
Yeah.
You know, communities are helping their own community, and you know, sometimes the government agencies, though their best intentions, can't even get to the people because they're not equipped for it.
Yeah.
And Jesus equips us as believers
Mm-hmm.
to do what he's asking us to do, and their needs getting met via government or neighbors or whatever is a wonderful thing, don't get me wrong, but when we do it personally, we can take the time to say, you know, the reason I'm doing this is because God did it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And you can share the message of Christ instead of just throwing money at a situation.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I don't know of lack of better
Mm-hmm.
explanation, but I think I'm understood in that.
Yeah, I got you. And it's just, you know, there is, you know, there's places for. I'm not saying that the government should just do hands off and let's not do anything.
No.
But what I am saying is, if you, me, Beth, anybody sees somebody in need, not to just say, well, you know, and like the, you know, like the Samaritan, you know, we had all these
Right.
Jewish leaders walk past and didn't want to do anything, but the Samaritan was the one
Right.
who, even though he was hated, still helped.
Right.
And so we can't just say, well, I don't want to do anything, I'm, you know, this, that, or the other thing. We just need to, if God puts it on your heart, just something small. You know, Christ even said, you give somebody a glass of water, you give somebody help in just the least amount, you are doing it for me.
Right.
So we have to check all of us have to check ourselves on that and just not dismiss.
And
Everybody.
don't neglect telling them verbally.
Yeah, while you're doing
about
it.
the message.
Yeah.
You know, while you're doing it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
here's a glass of water. Let me tell you about my Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's just part of the service. I mean, it's just
Sometimes you have to do a lot of helping and actions before you say anything, just to get people to trust you enough to listen.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, hope everybody has a glorious day, and we'll talk to you later.